right, so let's get started. I'm really excited about beginning this conversation about the college search process with you. Tonight we're going to look at the different types of colleges that are out there and start exploring the concept of fit and how that connects with your students' individual academic, social, and financial needs. And really my goal for this evening is to minimize the stress and emphasize the excitement and potential of the college application process. So just a little bit about me. I started my obsession with colleges about 5 years ago when I started the college journey with my first daughter. Fell in love with the process, read books, attended webinars, listened to podcasts. We toured about 40 different schools, and I just kept wanting to learn more and more about how to help other families navigate this ever-changing college landscape. Just this past summer, I completed my certificate in independent educational consulting from UC Irvine, and that was a 7-course series of classes devoted to all aspects of the college application process. So this professional training complements my background in education, where I have a high school teaching certificate. I earned my undergraduate degree from Northwestern in English. One of my favorite pastime jobs was serving as a writing tutor in Northwestern, their writing center. So I absolutely adore working on the writing process with students as they edit essays. Another one of my favorite jobs was when I got to profile small food businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area after I went to culinary school in my 20s. So I love tapping into the personal story that we all have. I currently live in El Segundo, California with my husband, 2 cats, a high school senior, which means I'm going through this all over again here right on the home front. I also have a 5th grader, and my oldest, who is my co-host tonight, is a junior at Bryn Mawr College outside of the Philadelphia area. All right. So my goal for tonight is to leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. So if any come up, you can pop them into the chat, and Anna will moderate that for us and let us know what is available at the end that we can answer. All right. Here we go. All right, so before we begin, I want to start with some myth busting. I think that in the media, we hear a lot about the very tiny percentage of colleges that only admit the tiniest fraction of students. Everyone knows Stanford admits, 4 at most 5% of their students. And that takes up a lot of time in the media. But according to a 2019 Pew Research poll, actually most schools admit more than 2/3 of their applicants. 90% of colleges in the US accept more than 80% of the students who apply, and the average acceptance rate for 4-year institutions is 66.7%. There are only 50 schools in the US that accept that tiny 15% or less. So really there are college options for every student, no matter where they're coming from, where they're at in their academic journey. There are schools and options for everybody. All right, so we're going to do a quick poll. Anna's going to launch the poll. So I didn't warn you this is going to be slightly interactive. So the question is, how many colleges do you think there are in the United States? Do you think there are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000? And we're talking community colleges, some technical colleges, our public and private institutions that are out there. If you're willing to take a guess, pick a number. All right. Let's see, we've got 5. Oh, all right. Okay. 10 more seconds to decide. Oh, did you cast it, Anna?
I mean, we have all the votes, so I mean.
Oh, all right, excellent. I wasn't sure how many people were in. All right, so we have the results. 5 out of 8 of you, 4,000 schools. That is actually correct. Oops. Sorry. Yeah, so there are over 4,000 colleges in the U.S. So going back to that whole notion of there's a school out there, there are options for every student. In California alone, we have 115 community colleges, 23 Cal States, 9 UCs, and about 200 private colleges. Smaller state of Massachusetts has a whopping 195, giant old Texas 148, and Oregon has over 100 colleges. So there are a lot of options out there. All right, so we're going to take a closer look at the different types of colleges that make up this 4,000. All right, so the first one we're going to take a look at is community colleges. These are very cost effective for our students. There are no standardized test requires. You enroll and you're in. It can take a lot of pressure off of senior year if this is the right step for your student. It's a really good option for students who are just not ready for that 4-year program yet. Maybe they're not ready to leave home. Maybe they're just on that academic trajectory upward and need a little more time to continue boosting their grades and improving their study skills. There are really great established transfer pathways. Many states do a very good job of having clear-cut pathways from community college to then transfer to a state school. More than actually half of Cal State grads and more than 28% of UC grads started their journey at community college. Yeah, the only caveat here is that really only 5% of community college students finish their 2-year degree within 2 years. So a lot of students start on this pathway with a plan, and some things get in their way of completing that 2-year degree within the 2-year time period. All right, so our public universities, these are our larger state-run institutions. They have much larger student population and usually class sizes. There are multiple professional colleges and graduate programs within these large public universities. For example, UCLA actually has 7 different schools within UCLA. There's a School of Theater, a School of Public Affairs, a School of Music, a School of Engineering, School of Nursing, School of Arts. There's an architecture school and your humanities school as well. So generally with public universities, students will apply into one of those particular schools. So it's usually a little more major specific and driven by the particular field that a student is mostly interested in studying in. So it can take a little more forethought from the student because they need to have a little bit more of an idea of what they want to study. Doesn't mean they can't go in undecided. They certainly can at many places, but often you have to apply to a certain school within the larger institution. Many of these schools are very research driven. When you start hearing about the public universities, you might hear them referred to as Tier 1 research schools. And that just means that they have a lot of money, time, and resources committed to the research process. So often these are the schools that are really putting out our cutting edge research that's coming out. At public universities, because there are so many students, there are a wide range of academic choices and extracurricular activities. They often have really big name sports, a lot of school spirit. They often have very well-known names, so there's a lot of name recognition when you go to a public university. And they also have very extensive resources in terms of libraries, labs, fine arts, athletic fields. There can be a lot of money pouring into the public universities from that respect. Okay, another category are liberal arts colleges, and they are much smaller than universities. They are really undergraduate focused. The vast majority of liberal arts colleges really only serve our 4-year student population. There are a few that have a few specific graduate degree programs on their campuses, but it's usually very narrowly focused. At these liberal arts colleges, teaching really is the primary responsibility of professors. Oftentimes, professors decide to teach at liberal arts colleges because they are really interested in that, establishing relationships with their with their students, and working with them in that regard. There are also, with the liberal arts curriculum, there's usually a very broad base of courses in the humanities, social sciences, and sciences. Usually within a liberal arts college, you're going to get maybe about a third of the time you'll spend in your major classes. A third of the time might be spent on specific requirements that the college wants you to take. And then another third are going to be elective classes where you can really explore. So liberal arts colleges really offer a much wider range of options to explore and perhaps figure out what you're interested in. In comparison to public universities, they usually have a much smaller number of major and minors. UCLA, I think, has about 125 different majors, but most liberal arts colleges are going to have somewhere between 30 and 50. So they often cover the same types of majors, just perhaps not as specific. Perhaps a liberal arts college will just have chemistry, whereas a larger public institution might break it down into biochemistry and several other possible disciplines as well. Now, I did mention research opportunities at private universities or at the public universities, but liberal arts colleges actually do research as well. I've been on dozens and dozens of liberal arts college info sessions this summer, and every single one, without a doubt, mentioned that freshmen can do research. So they might not have as much funding going towards research, but research is definitely happening at liberal arts colleges. And because students aren't competing with graduate students, they often have more opportunities to get involved with research, perhaps at an even earlier stage in their academic career. All right. So in addition to those three types of schools, we also have technical institutes and professional schools. And these are schools that really prepare students for specific careers, for example, in music, fine arts, engineering, or technical sciences. For example, I know we have a lot of LA folks here on the call. Otis College, just down the road here from me, is actually the only school in the entire nation to offer a degree in toy design. It's a pretty neat thing they've got going on there. Yeah, so when a student is looking at a technical institute or a professional school, it's really a good idea for them to have done a little bit more exploration into career outcomes for those particular degrees. It's really great if they've done some extra soul searching to make sure that they really want to fully immerse themselves in that particular field. If they get into, if they have applied to a particular type of school and they then decide that that's not necessarily the course that they want to pursue, it can be a little more challenging to transfer to a different type of institution, often because the curriculum doesn't necessarily align. Sometimes the accreditation process is different. So I definitely recommend a real self-exploration when you're taking a look at these specific colleges like this. But they're totally great for the student who definitely knows what they want to do, and that is their drive. But also, actually, just to mention, actually, Otis down the street, they have a partnership with Loyola Marymount in town. So a lot of times the technical and professional schools are now partnering with liberal arts or other types of institutions to help create more of a broad focus for their students and provide more opportunities for different types of coursework, if that's what the students want to branch out into. All right, so in addition, there are actually specialty college types too. There are women's colleges, there are historically black colleges and universities. I know there are over 100 of those called HBCUs. There are tribal colleges, Hispanic serving institutions, religiously affiliated colleges, and then there's a whole world of colleges outside of the US. So if you can't find what you're looking for in the States, you can head abroad. All right, so with so many different options out there, what factors can help your student decide what school will be a good fit for them? So we're going to take a look at factors such as location, size, cost, academics, and campus life. Oh, time for another poll. I'm going to take a sip of water, and you guys are going to let me know if you think your student would like to stay close to home, perhaps go to a neighboring state, try out another geographical location in the U.S., or get out of here totally. All right, looks like we have a really broad range here. I'm actually surprised to see so many. Are you sharing the poll yet, Anna?
Not everyone voted, so I was waiting.
Oh, not everyone's voted. Okay. All right. I know it's a really big decision. Don't worry, you do not have to commit your student to this life course right now. There is still time to change in the future. um, yeah, and I don't, if you have a twin, you might need to vote twice, although I'm not sure that's a possibility. All right, that's close enough. Um, all right. So here we've got a whole bunch of you think your student is actually willing to venture to a whole different geographical location in the U.S. Right now, during COVID times, there's definitely a trend where more people are thinking about local options as well. So, there's a good number of you who think your student would like to stay, in your own home state or perhaps close. And we've got one person who thinks their student might want to go outside of the U.S. All right. Okay. All right, so when we're looking at locations, factors to consider. If you're going out of the state, there are travel expenses, there's travel time. If you're looking at a college that's pretty close to a local metropolitan area, perhaps a quick plane ride is all it takes, to get to campus. However, there are a lot of schools that are 2 and 3 and 4 hours outside of your larger metropolitan airport, and so then you have to consider how your student is getting to and from the airport to get to school. For a lot of students, they really have to factor in how important it is for them to be close to home, to continue perhaps important family relationships, or to remain close to friends. A lot of those issues do come up as well. And then there's just adjustment to new environment, whether it be just simply the weather, culture, different opportunities that are available. And then one that nobody thinks, I swear they never write about this in the books, but summer storage needs. If you go to a school that's you can't drive to, your kid has to store their stuff over the summer, and it can be just a tad bit of madness, and definitely an extra expense that summer storage costs have taken me by surprise the last couple of years. All right. So in addition to thinking about geographical locations, your student can think about if they want an urban environment, do they want suburban, do they want rural? How important is it for them to be close to the amenities of a big city? And also, what type of big city are they looking for? Certainly living in Los Angeles, where we're so spread out, is not anything similar to living, in the heart of New York City. So sometimes, there's sort of an understanding that students need to have about what kind of urban environment they might be, joining. Perhaps your student wants the amenities of a city, but maybe a little bit of distance, a little more green space. A suburban option might be wonderful. But if they're looking for a more relaxed college atmosphere and one where most of college life is taking place on the college campus itself, a rural opportunity might be just perfect. If your student is willing to, embrace all that's available on the college campus and, be okay with it, being a little bit more challenging to get off campus. That's perfect for some students, but really challenging for others. All right, I think we have our last poll of the evening. This is our thoughts on college size. So do you think your student might want to go to a small college, medium one, or a large college? And actually, I'll throw in a few facts here. The smallest college in the U.S. has fewer than 30 students, but the largest universities have, in excess of 50,000 students. I think I might have minimized my tab. We have the results up yet, Anna?
2/3 have voted, so I was going to give them another.
2/3. Well, maybe a few people have stepped away from their computer screen there.
I'll share the results.
All right. Oh, all right. We've got smack dab in the middle. Medium-sized college for a lot of students. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think one of the good things to note and to emphasize to your student is that the size of their high school is not necessarily the best frame of reference for what a college experience is going to be like. So my daughter attends a school that has 1,200 9th through 12th graders. However, that experience is not going to align with a super small college. Simply because the students are at college, no one's there from 8:20 to 3 o'clock every single day. So everyone's going and coming at different places. People have different majors. You're taking such a wide range of coursework that it's just not the same. It's just not the same experience as your high school, even if you compare the numbers. There are just so many more opportunities in college to mix it up with and meet other students. All right, so let's take a look at small schools. Actually, 80% of private colleges in the U.S. fall into this category, as well as 25% of U.S. public colleges. Small schools really offer greater interactions between student and professor because of the smaller class sizes. They can be a really good choice if you prefer discussion-based classes as opposed to larger lectures. There's often a fair amount of flexibility to explore majors and change your mind. I mentioned earlier that classes are usually taught by professors, not TAs, because they're in there building those relationships. Small schools, really, the hallmark is that they are creating small communities, family-like environments, and really a close-knit group of students. And then there are lots of opportunities to get involved. There might be a smaller number overall of clubs and extracurriculars, but there's really minimal competition. They have so many clubs and there's a smaller number of students, so there's really something for everybody to do. Larger schools, mentioned this before, many more majors offered, usually in a much wider range of disciplines. You have access to advanced facilities and equipment. They can be really good for students who learn by listening. They can also offer anonymity, which is something that a lot of students really like, just sort of a place to blend in with the crowd. It can be hard to do that when you're in small classes all the time and they're all discussion based, and a place to a larger school where you can just kind of blend in can be really very comforting for a lot of students. Again, wide range of activities to choose from, and there's often really giant school spirit and big sports teams to enjoy and fill your weekends with. All right, so we've taken a look at some different sizes and locations of college. What I really want to emphasize right now is the financial match of college and the importance of having this conversation early with your student. It's never too early to start thinking about how you'll pay for college. And there are many tools out there that help you estimate the cost of education based on your own financial circumstances. And we're going to go into much greater depth on this in 2 weeks, where we're going to cover, all the aspects of filling out the FAFSA and the additional um, the additional financial aid forms that are required by many other schools out there. Stay tuned for more. But this conversation is really best to have with your student when it happens alongside college list development. So you want your student to have schools on their list that you feel you can actually comfortably afford. It can be a really hard conversation to have when you get to April and your student is looking at all of their acceptances and their, the financial aid award letters. And if you haven't had the conversation earlier about about financial fit, you may look at these schools and say, we can't afford these options. And that can be really, very gut-wrenching and devastating at that time. So if you build the financial component into the conversation when your student is building the list and figuring out where to apply, it can be, and it's never an easy conversation, but it's a lot easier to have earlier in the conversation than later. All right, so let's take a look at community college costs. I had mentioned earlier that they are obviously much more affordable. That's one of the hallmarks of community college. And actually, I think I heard a stat yesterday that 48% of students who are in college are actually community college students. So this is something that appeals to a very broad range of students. I took a look at our local community college here in Los Angeles. It's El Camino College if you're in the area. The tuition for the year for 2 semesters worth of classes with a normal class load, usually 4 classes per semester. We're talking just a little over $1,100 for tuition. And in fact, El Camino, and I suspect many other community colleges out there, they currently have a specialized program that pays for tuition for the first 2 years for college students of local high school students who apply to this college and then follow through with the program. It's called South Bay Promise. You do have to take into account cost of books, supplies, transportation, and living expenses, because that's certainly not included up in the tuition prices above. So those are kind of things you all have to budget for yourself when you're looking at the overall cost of a community college. But tuition prices are extremely reasonable there. When we take a look at in-state public costs, I took a look at 5 different public colleges across the nation to take a look at their tuition and total room and board prices. And those are specifically for in-state residents only. So the prices that you're seeing for the various universities are for if you're a resident of that state. And those figures don't include indirect costs, which are things like books, supplies, transportation costs, personal expenses, and perhaps that summer storage that I mentioned earlier. So you have to always factor in those additional costs as well. Again, I'll be going into a little more detail in 2 weeks about cost, but if you're ever curious about the cost of attendance at any school, all you need to do is Google cost of attendance and the name of the school, and you'll see a very detailed breakdown. Now, some will just give you tuition and room and board. Some are going to lump together all of these indirect costs, and you might see, a bigger number because they've counted for, like $1,000 for books and $800 for transportation. So not all cost of attendances appear the same. So if you kind of know ahead of time what you're looking for and what the different options are, hopefully it makes a little more sense when you see the different charts that are out there. All right, let's take a look at some out-of-state public colleges. So usually, sometimes students will make the assumption that they'll take a look at an out-of-state public college and they'll think, oh, this is going to be affordable because it's a state college. However, for many, many colleges out there, public colleges, the out-of-state rate is nowhere near the in-state resident rate. So in the state of California, tuition at a UC is just over $14,000, but if you are not a California resident, that tuition goes up to $43,000. University of Michigan, for example, $16,000 if you're in-state, $36,000 just for tuition alone for non-residents. So that's just kind of a bit of an eye-opener there. A lot of students are just not aware of that out-of-state cost. The good news is that there are often tuition reciprocity programs in neighboring states. So here in the state of California, we have something called WUI, which stands for Western Undergraduate Exchange, and it's an agreement between a very, very large number of schools, all the way up from Washington over to Idaho, down to Colorado, down to Nevada, down to Arizona, Oregon over there. I may have missed a few states, but all on the western border here that have an agreement to really reduce the tuition prices for California residents. And similarly, there's an exchange process there. So there can be a really big savings there. So for example, at Arizona State University, you can apply, and instead of paying the usual out-of-state rate of almost $29,000, instead you pay just a little over $14,000. So your regional tuition reciprocity program is a really good one to research. And in my in the handout I'm going to send afterwards, I have a link to a site that lists all the different reciprocity programs that are out there. And another good thing is to check for automatic scholarships for out-of-state residents. I was just looking at University of Oregon the other day, and I just typed in University of Oregon out-of-state scholarships, and there's a whole list of ones that are automatically offered to out-of-state residents when they meet certain thresholds, and usually those are GPA specific. In past years, they've also been standardized test driven, but not necessarily this year, given the test optional movement that we're in the middle of, since no one can get to take their standardized test. So there can often be a lot of just automatic scholarships, because there are a lot of state schools that are really looking for students. For example, Maine has has an aging population. They simply do not have enough students to fill their public universities. So a state like Maine is really encouraging out-of-state students because they need kids, and their own population simply cannot meet that demand. All right, private colleges and universities. These are usually the ones where sticker shock really truly sets in, because the sticker price can exceed $70,000 for many of these. University of Chicago this year they broke 80,000. They are at $81,531. I read this morning, and they are now America's most expensive four-year institution. The thing with sticker price for these private colleges and universities, though, is that the vast majority of people don't pay anything near the sticker price. Private colleges truly offer much more institutional aid, which is money from their own pockets, including grants and merit scholarships to help students pay for college. And it's free money that you don't have to pay back. So it really helps to reduce the overall sticker price of these schools, because they're offering so much of their own institutional aid to cover the additional costs. And very often, it's not rare for a student to actually receive a larger financial aid package at a private university than their in-state. And again, we're going to cover that in much more detail in 2 weeks, because there's all sorts of handy things to know about figuring out what your expected family contribution is going to be for college, and then how you can really take advantage of the different discounts that are out there. Private colleges also have many automatic scholarships that are listed on their financial aid pages as well. Um, I believe, what was I looking at? I think University of Puget Sound, they are up in Oregon, and they have a whole structured list of automatic scholarships. They're very transparent about the amount of money that they will be offering you if you apply and are accepted, and you have, a certain GPA. So it can be really comforting to see that transparency and know that you're going to get a particular level of a merit scholarship. So. Not all schools are as transparent, but many are, and there's definitely a movement towards more transparency. Okay, so in addition to kind of covered the whole financial match of schools and how important that is, academic match is also probably first and foremost, perhaps, of what we think of when we're thinking of where our students should go to college. So these are really things about getting a sense of, does your student learn best by listening, discussing, hands-on opportunities? Does your student want a competitive environment or a collaborative one? Are they really driven by their peers, or are they more interested in working, collaboratively on group projects? So those can be totally different vibes at different schools. So is your student going to thrive more in a small class setting, or will they prefer those larger lectures? And what kind of balance are they looking for between their academic life and their social life? Some schools are much more, spend much more time on the studying front. Some schools, promote work hard, play hard. So it's, acknowledging and understanding, what kind of balance your student needs there. And other things such as, do you want to design your own major? Some colleges are much more structured than others, and others have much looser requirements, and even allow you to design your own major. There can also be specialized programs that fit along with this academic match. Perhaps you have a student who needs tutoring. Perhaps they have a learning difference, and we need to make sure that those services are in place and are really wonderful there at the school for your student. Some schools really have phenomenal study abroad programs. I think everyone can study abroad, I think, at every college, but some schools definitely send a much higher percentage of their students abroad. So it's just much more a regular course of action at some universities than others. Internships and research opportunities are also to be considered, and can definitely be researched in the college application, in the college journey. You can identify if you're looking at a school that really promotes internships and research, and that usually comes along with like the career center that's in place at the school. All right, so in addition to academic match, another key piece is we want our kids to go to a campus where they're going to be happy. So that often involves a social match. And this takes into consideration things such as, does your student want a residential campus where everyone is living on campus mostly for 4 years, and really involved in the community life there, or more of a commuter campus where students are, going home on the weekends, and going home on the weekends, or perhaps your student would love, maybe to live a couple of years on campus and then have the opportunity to, move into an apartment with friends, maybe junior and senior year. There are definitely colleges that promote that kind of growth as well. Is your student interested in Greek life? That's an easy, one to identify and research if it's available on a campus, and what percentage of students are involved in Greek life, and how much of campus culture it really is defined by Greek life. School spirit. How do you want that manifested on campus? Party scene. Do you want an A+ party scene, or are you okay with like a B-? So do you need? That just depends on what your student wants, and oftentimes that doesn't jive with what a parent wants for their student. But that's one of those honest conversations for later. Are you looking for a politically active student body? There are campuses that are, far more liberal or far more conservative than others. There are ones where students are very involved in the political scene, and others where a little more lax about that. Are you looking for a campus that has a lot of community service opportunities? A lot of times you can find that embedded in the school's mission statement about how much they expect their community to give back to others. And then also diversity of student body is also another key factor that is very important to a lot of students. And there are definitely very easy ways to find out about the breakdown of the student population. And I'm going to show you those in a little bit. I guess I have a lot to say about social scene. So all sorts of other factors to identify. So there are easy ways to, or there are concrete ways to find out if if you have good LGBTQ support structures on campus. Are you looking for a sports culture? Some kids are really interested in having totally renovated dorms and award-winning cafeteria food. For some students, that is, prime on their list. And also, what kind of club opportunities are they looking for, and leadership as well. So these are a whole host of things that you can consider, your student can consider when they're thinking about where they want to go. So one of the places, and you'll get a link to this when I send the resource document out, is something called Corsava cards. And this is a tool that I absolutely adore. When Anna went to college, I got this card sort after she was already there, and then I made her come back and do the card sort, and I wanted to make sure that every single thing she really wanted to have was at that school. But that was all in hindsight. So your student, however, can do this ahead of time. So the card sort takes a look at different factors of community life on campus. And so we've got 2 sample cards here. Oops, I think I checked back. Oh no, go back. Sorry. So we've got collaborative environment and hands-on learning. Sorry, my little Zoom window was in the way and I couldn't even read what was on the screen. So your student gets to sort through, there's 138 different cards, and they identify if these factors are things they really want to have, so must have, big heart eye emoji choice, would be nice to have, don't care about, and no way on campus. So this really helps students identify what they are looking for on a college campus. And the beautiful thing about Corsava cards is that you can start this early. So I wouldn't maybe recommend it any earlier than maybe late sophomore or early junior year, just to sort of embed some of these terms in your student's mind. So get them started thinking about some of this verbiage and some of the qualities and factors that are on college campuses, but always keeping in mind that they can change their mind at any point in time. All you have to do is go back in your card sort and you change heart eye emojis to another one, and you take that off of your must-have list. A lot of times students think they want one thing in a college, but then when they start researching, or perhaps, in the future, when we get to go on campuses again and they actually see what it feels like to be perhaps on a large urban campus, they might have thought originally that that's what they wanted, but then when they actually experience that, they realize that that does not necessarily suit their personality very well. And it really is a process of evolving and, being willing to be self-reflective, and also to, being willing to change your mind, and to acknowledge that. And that's really what this particular card is all about. And it's also about really knowing what you want, what your student wants, and not necessarily what the parent wants, and not what their friends want, but really, individual student-specific decisions there. Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at some resources in just a moment. So where can you find out about these schools? So I've talked about all of these different factors that are, so important in the college decision-making process. So where can you go to actually get some of this information? When we're actually able to get out and travel again, there's really no substitute for actually stepping on a college campus. I know right now so many of them are closed to visitors, but when we're able to get out and visit again, especially if you have younger students, or hopefully for our senior parents on the call, let's hope in the spring, fingers crossed, that we can perhaps get on campus and see see how our student actually feels on the ground at these places. And if you also have younger students, it can be a really great thing to start local and check out different sizes of schools, check out different types of schools. So go to a large public school, head to a small, call it local, a small private college in your area. If you can access, an urban school and a suburban school and a rural school, try to get a feel of what that is like to your student. So oftentimes we can do a lot of the exploration really close to home. And then you can take, that particular mindset and then apply it to colleges outside of, your own particular geographical region. Okay, I am going to show you in the last couple of minutes here a couple of search engine tools that I really love. Okay, so there's a great one by the Big Bad College Board. I know we're all in love with them right now, with the SAT and all that, but they do have a lot of awesome college resources out there. So one of them, and you'll see this, I'll be sending this link out to you. This is the College Board's BigFuture College Search. And you'll see on the left that you have all sorts of filters that you can select. So I'm just going to click through a few. I'm going to click, we want a 4-year college. I'm going to go with a public institution. I'm going to go with a medium-sized one, since so many of you wanted that for your student. And I'm going to pick, I am going to pick the Midwest today. There are also a whole host of other options that you can pick. Maybe I'm going to go and pick one major. Perhaps my student really wants business. Yeah, and if I click too many factors here, we won't have a list to look at, but I'll let you play around with that later. So we had 81 results that came up based on that particular search filter that I put in. So this sort of goes back to that original thought of, or your understanding that there's 4,000 colleges out there. And here's a whole host of ones that fit the particular filter parameters that I set in. One other search engine is called College Navigator. And this one is actually all populated by government, by data that is collected by the government. So it can be accurate. And I'll be honest, you can put in the same filters in both of these search engines and other search engines that are out there and come up with different lists. So it's a good idea to do multiple, to try out multiple search engines. I'm going to pick the West Coast here. Did I pick West? There we go. Let's see, I'm going to pick a bachelor's degree. I'm going to go with a private this time. And just a quick word about don't ever click the for-profit. For-profit colleges are not what we're ever looking for. So stick to your nonprofits for that. And let's see, I will pick a program. Maybe I'll pick education this time. Did I pick it? Sometimes I'm not sure what I need to do to pick it. Let's see. Oh, close. All right, show results. This is not as excuse me, as pretty, perhaps, as the College Board site. But again, we've got more than 11 pages of results here. So clearly my search could benefit from a little more narrowing down. Oh, and I also forgot to show you that there are actually tons of other search options here too. You can click campus setting. You can even put in score percentages or percentage of applicants admitted. So wide range of search capabilities here. And those are really two, you just play around with them. All right, so we also have many research resources that I want to show you really quickly. The first one is going to be College Scorecard, and this is actually from populated by the Department of Education. And this is about Syracuse University, so a very large private college up in Syracuse, New York, with about 15,000 undergraduate students. So you'll find some very interesting data points on here. And the couple I wanted to really point out, they were selected earlier before, but let's see. Sorry. Costs. Okay, this is the one I wanted. So the cost tab, because I don't have time to show you all the costs, all the tabs. If you'll take a look on the right-hand side, it tells us the average annual cost for Syracuse, broken down by different family income levels. So Syracuse is a large private institution. I know that their sticker price is definitely in excess of $70,000, but you'll see here that that is not what people pay. Even when you're looking at, family incomes of, over 100,000. So, this can be a little bit of a, perhaps a little bit of peace of mind if you come here and take a look that sticker price is not necessarily what, most families pay. And this is certainly by no means, specific to your individual family, but it's just, sort of a beginning metric point. And then the other thing I loved here is actually fields of study, and it shows you the ones that are most popular at that school. So it looks like Syracuse generates a lot of psychology and information science graduates. It actually then breaks it down into your median earnings based on your field of study. So they've collected a lot of data as well about what's your return on investment for this college degree. Perhaps no surprise that mechanical and civil engineering top the ranks there, but this can be a cool data point to go to. There are other fields as well, but I'm going to flip to college data right now to show you. And again, this will be on my resource page. This is one, I have Occidental College. It's a small liberal arts college located here in Los Angeles. And it tells me here the percentage of students that are in each class here at Occidental. So you can see that there are actually 0 classes that have above 40 students at Occidental. The vast majority actually have between 10 to 19 students. So very, very small class sizes at Occidental. And then the other thing I wanted to share was the ethnicity breakdown at this college, and you can find this breakdown for any particular college on this website. So it tells us how many international students they have, as well as the the demographics from the U.S. All right, another fun one that I love is called College Express. And these are all lists that are actually curated by professionals. So they're not, they have a lot of basis in, in research and actual, data exploration. So there are over 800 different lists that are available to search on College Express. So I'm going to click 15 colleges with the most school spirit. And I'm going to come up with a list of the 15 schools that experts say have tons of school spirit. And the cool thing is when I click on the school for one link or for one list, and again, I have lots of data points here as well. But what I can get to is all the other lists that this particular school is on. So there's even more lists and rankings. So USC is on tons of other lists that you can then cross-reference to see what you're looking for. So College Express is a lot of fun to explore. And then we're going to go into more detail next week about this particular one. But UVisit is one of my favorite sites for college tours. And I'm not going to click on any of these because they open up all sorts of sound windows, and they have 360-degree experiences. But there are hundreds of colleges on here where your student can go and take a virtual tour and get a look at what a campus looks like. All right. Also, honestly, the vast majority of research that students do, and some of the most productive, is the individual college websites themselves. And they can be a really great way for students to get a feel for the college's mission statement. They can get a sense of what individual departments and majors are like, what kind of research, what kind of professors are there, and what their work looks like. My senior daughter is interested in studying art, so she can go directly to those professors' pages, and they often have links to their own professors' art website, so she can actually see the type of art that these professors are actually creating, and that perhaps might be inspiring some of their work with students. And you can also get a very detailed understanding of what type of student activities are on campus. One of my favorite other hints is to follow college social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. They have, the colleges usually have so many different departmental groups for Facebook and Instagram. You can follow clubs there. You can follow the admissions department. You can follow a particular department. Perhaps you can follow a museum that's on campus. And it really gives you a flavor for what is out there at that school and what they're promoting kind of more on a day-by-day basis. And definitely on Instagram, they always have student takeovers of the account, and that really gives you a good look into a day in the life of a student at that particular campus. Many colleges also have official YouTube channels, and then there are also tons of unofficial YouTube channels out there for colleges as well. All right, since it looks like we're at 7 o'clock here, I do have tons of books that I'm going to share on my resource page with you. So I'll let you take a look at that, on your own. There are, college review guidebooks. There are books that really hone in on, smaller niche areas like liberal arts. There are books for visual and performing arts students. And then there are a few that really do a great job of helping explain how you as a parent and as a family can navigate this whole journey. And my favorite one really is The Truth About College Admissions, written by Rick Clark and Brennan Barnard. They really do a wonderful job of explaining how a family can manage this process, go through senior year, and actually still want to talk to each other at the end of it. Because it definitely, it can be a stressful situation, but they have a lot of pointers and tips for, managing that process and, doing it with joy and less stress. All right, I think next week we'll probably talk more about other resources that are available to students, as that really hinges a lot on their upcoming research that we're going to take a look at. So next week we're going to take a look at how students can research colleges during COVID-19, and actually how virtual opportunities are probably here to stay. Schools have invested a lot of time and money into helping students all around the world learn about their particular institution in a time where we can't actually get on campus. And they're really learning that being able to reach out to students is very beneficial, and they're able to reach students they were never able to reach before. And then the following Monday, we're going to take a very comprehensive look at financial aid and the factors involved in applying for financial aid and considering the costs of college. And also, you all have my email address, so I do offer initial complimentary 45-minute sessions to discuss how I can help your family with the college application process. So that is actually sort of the end of my presentation. I'm not sure. I haven't actually even looked to see if there was anything in the chat, but I know we've gone past 7 o'clock. Anna, was there anything in there?
No.
No, all right. I was even going to promise to email you personally if you left a message. Maybe I should have said that in advance. But you can always email me if a particular question came up in the course of this, and I'm happy to get that answer for you. So, yeah, I think that I will sign off for the evening. I thank you again for all coming to my inaugural debut here. I'm very excited that you stuck with me. So, yeah, I hope you learned something, and I look forward to sharing more with you next week. And if you want to invite your students next week really is, perhaps more student-centered, unless you're actually really helping your student drive the research process. I know that a lot of parents are very heavily involved in that. So parents are definitely welcome, but if you want to bring your students along too, it might be great for them to hear that information as well. Yeah, great. Well, I hope you all continue to stay well, and send me an email if you have any questions. So, all right, thank you so much. Bye.